And to make money, I would go play the quena in the streets of Lima and the plazas, And fortunately, at that time, they will allow you to play music in the streets, so you can just go any place. Was bringing me to the United States to play music, and my mom was very happy. She said, Nayo, estás mejorando la raza.
Oh, my goodness.
With pride.
Wow.
Mejorando, improving the race. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But thinking back, it had to do with this colonial mindset as well. Then the Russians did a great job with the national music. When you hear classical music from Russia, you can tell it's Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did an amazing job. Latin America, we've done some work. We have a lot of work, but it's not well known yet.
Good morning, Nayo. Thank you so much for having us here one more time.
Oh, good morning, my dear. It's nice to see you again. Thank you.
Last time we interviewed you, it was in Spanish. Today we have the pleasure to do this in English for our audience that doesn't speak Spanish.
Well, thank you.
And it's always nice talking to you. And last time I came here, I took a look at your library, your area where you create. I call this the sanctuary. It's more like a creative space, but it's beautiful. And today, I would like to invite people to the concert actually next week.
Yes, next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
4 p.m. in Sauter Hall in Goshen College. We are featuring the Goshen premiere of the Concierto Sinfónico Machu Picchu.
That's huge, Nayo. That is amazing. I had the opportunity to go to the Sauter Hall last night to the concert, where different pieces from different parts of the world, from South Africa, Chinese, from India, from Indonesia, from Ecuador, from Venezuela, different music. That was amazing. I mean, the sounds of our people, the sounds of the different parts of the world. And you were part of it. Actually, there was this young man, Victor Vegas, who made a composition with one of your poems.
Yes, Victor. Yeah, this is wonderful. I mean, I'm very grateful to Professor Raz Wall, I think is her last name. She's one of the voice professors, and she's really showing a lot of interest in not only saying, but doing in multicultural music. So that has been wonderful. And she's already excited about next year to do some other Latino, Hispanic, mestizo music. That's very exciting.
That's amazing. Going back to your poem in Victor Vegas, I think that's very important. There are a lot of immigrants, a lot of people from different parts of the world here in the Goshen area. And in Goshen College has various students from different parts of the world, and really Victor Vegas he made this composition, and what I was going to say is how important it is to have somebody like you as a mentor to kind of pass that mantle to the next generation.
Yes, that's actually the most exciting part of being part of Goshen College. I mean, I'm an adjunct professor at Goshen College. I teach music and international studies. Not music, sorry, Spanish. I wish I teach music. That's a different story.
Right.
I do teach international studies and also Spanish. Now, when I teach international studies, I put a lot of emphasis in music, literature, painting, all of that.
Well, let's go back to the event next week. There will be 3 different composers from Latin America, from Argentina, Mexico, and Peru.
That's right.
Could you tell us when renowned names? Piazzolla, for example.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, the concert next Sunday is historic, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because I have lived in Goshen for 12 years. I think you've been around longer than that.
Yes.
Right? And since I arrived here, I have not seen any symphony of this area to dedicate an entire concert to mestizo composers. By mestizo, I mean Latino, Hispanic, indigenous, Afro-descendants. I haven't seen any orchestra to do that. So in my experience, this is the first time, so it's historic. And we're playing three pieces, one by Argentinian composer, Astor Piazzolla. He was an amazing bandoneonista. No, they play the
Bandoneon, yes.
Bandoneon,
Yes.
¿verdad? Entonces, he wrote a lot of music. But one of his most famous is called Libertango. And that has to do with the freedom, libertad, because he was being criticized, because he was taking some, the national music of Argentina and kind of
The tango music, right?
And make it symphonic.
Pushing the limits.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we do in this Sunday. No, this is Latin American classical music, classical in the sense that it's being arranged for a symphonic orchestra. So, to avoid the criticism, we say, okay, I don't write tangos. I write libre tangos, free tangos on my own style. So that's one of the pieces we're playing, libre tango. Then the other one we're playing is Danzón number 2. Danzón número 2 by a Mexican composer. His name is Arturo Márquez. Now the danzón is originally from Cuba. Cuba, this small island probably has been the most influential musical for all Latin America, and in the United States as well. Now, Cuba brings a lot of mambo, cha-cha-cha, danzón, all that. They bring that to New York in the 1950s.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And actually, when people talk about Latin jazz or big band, a lot of it is influenced by Cuban music.
Yes.
You know, Jessica Gillespie, he learned from the Cubans a lot of what he later will call jazz or Latin jazz. So Danzón number 2 is a wonderful piece that when you hear it, you hear some of the specific, it feels like a mambo, but the danzón is before the mambo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a predecessor of the mambo. And the danzón is based on a dance from France called counter dance. So the people from Cuba and the area, they will imitate the dancing of the Europeans, but they added some of the African flavor to it. So you can hear the flavor of it. And then at the beginning it was just more European, but with the famous clave, the ta, ta, ta.
Ta, ta. Right.
Ta. It has that clave behind the whole time, the clave, but then they added another section. They call it the montuno. The montuno, you heard the montuno?
Yes, of course.
That's the montuno. But the montuno I didn't know this. I was doing some studying about this composer because I didn't know the composer, which is kind of ironic. I mean, I love Latin music. I'm a promoter of it, and I didn't know who he was. Kind of shame for me. But I learned that they added the montuno because they wanted to add more flavor from the montes. This is like country music for them. And at the beginning, there was some resistance to it. They thought it was too folkloric. But it's part of the repertoire now. Now that's the second piece. Now the third piece, the Concierto Sinfónico Machu Picchu, that's a great big work, written in the form of a concerto, of European concerto, following the format of something was called Sonata Allegro. That was the format. Established pretty much by the time of Mozart, it had a format already. So the concerto, the format concerto sonata allegre, sonata just means sounds.
Yeah.
Means sounds. Usually we say sonata is instrumental. If it is sung, it's called cantata, like to sing, cantata. And it featured this instrument, this concerto. Concierto Sinfónico Machu Picchu was written actually, especially for me, by mentor, which is wonderful. And it's been a journey to actually get it to be performed. So I'm very excited and happy that it's happening here in Goshen next Sunday. Wow.
Yeah, let's take a pause right there because what I would like to cover today is that story. What is your mentor's name?
Jaime Díaz Orihuela.
And he's not a composer that has been known worldwide yet.
Yet, yes.
But it's about to begin, right?
I hope so. He's an amazing composer. Peruvian, from Arequipa, Peru, which is in southern Peru. Great pianist. His specialty was writing marches. He won many awards in Peru and also Latin America with marches, like hymns for cities. And he has tons of music that hasn't been seen yet. And I hope that the Concierto Machu Picchu kind of opens the door for some of his music to be heard. Now when he wrote the Concierto Machu Picchu, this started a long time ago. I met him about 1977, 78, around there. I was going to college. And since I met him, he kept talking about writing this concerto. And when he told me about it, I really had no idea what it was. And he was teaching me how to read music and all of that, to train me, really Later I learned he was training me to play this concerto. But I wasn't the only one he was training. He was training several people. Later I learned, but he will tell me I was the only one.
Why did you tell us the story how you met?
Oh, Jaime, well, I met him in the streets, in the Plaza San Martin. That's in center of Lima, Plaza San Martin. And I was going to college at the time. And to make money, I would go play the quena in the streets of Lima and the plazas. You know, and fortunately, at that time, they would allow you to play music in the streets. So you can just go any place in the corner, start playing music and pass a hat, you know. So I would do that pretty much daily on my way to college or coming back from college. And one day I met him, Jaime. So he came back and he looked at me and he was listening there. And he came and said, hey, you play the quena very well. I said, thank you. Can you read music? I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. You should learn the music. Okay, tell me something else. He said, do you know that you're using, in Spanish, you say, una respiración diafragmática? He told me, do you know you're using a diaphragmatic, it could be in English? Breathing? I said,
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know, am I? Yes, you are. And yeah, he said, that's interesting. This is something that he enjoyed before. He said, that's interesting because usually people have to learn. Somebody have to train them, but you're just doing it. I go, yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah. I say, oh, okay. Wow. So I got no idea. So he said, you should come over, I'll teach you how to teach music, how to read music. And I said, okay. So I took his number, and I just kept it. I didn't go see him for a few months. Then something happened that somebody in the streets again approached me that he was looking for somebody to play the quena in his concierto recital. It was a poetry. Poetry. His name, he called himself El Declamador de América.
Oh, wow.
Very big name.
Big name.
He was very good. He was very, I mean, he had a theatrical, what today they will call it a performance, a performance. And this is in the early 80s, late 70s. And he said, he asked me, can you read music? I said, yes, I can read music. I couldn't read music, but I thought it was interesting. So I think I went looking for Jaime, desperately knocked on his door. And I remember very well when I got there, his wife opened the door. There were two little kids. He got two kids at that time. And I came in, and his wife said, oh, yes, he'll be here in a minute. I sit down and I kind of in the way, like a place. And the place was full of diplomas and awards all over the place. And his full name was Jaime Edilberto Díaz Orihuela. Now, he told me Jaime, he didn't tell me he was Jaime Díaz Orihuela. The Jaime Díaz Orihuela, one of the most famous composers of Peru. At that time, I knew who he was by name. We studied him at school, one of the nationalistic composers. At that time, he was the director of Radio Nacional, National Radio. He conducted several orchestras. I mean, he was super famous in Peru, and I was just overwhelmed, and so I was, well, thrilled. And he started teaching me how to read music and play, not to play the quena. He didn't play the quena. He asked me to do all kinds of crazy things in the quena. He wanted to hear the sounds that the quena could make. Especially, he loved the sounds that sounded like birds and stuff like that. He loved that. I mean, he will do crazy. Can I show you? Because
absolutely, I was gonna go to that.
This is some of my beautiful quenas. Well, he will have the quena like this, and he say, okay, now you play these notes. He will make you play scales. No songs. I didn't play any songs. Just scales. Things like okay, do like. Say okay again. I say, what else can you do? Can you do like that? Yeah, sure, like. Oh yeah, I like that. So again. Oh, okay, good. Say, how about you just blow the holes? Say, no, but quickly, like. Oh. So you say,
interesting. Yeah, very explorative, huh?
Yeah, you say, oh, blah blah. Okay. So he was saying, what is the highest note you can play? I don't know. Say, oh, can you go higher? Oh, he said, how about you cover in the bottom? Just
wow.
That's what he had me doing. Stuff like that. You know, like, okay, he said, how about you rub the quenas? You blow, okay. Oh, good. How about the other hand? So he just
finding the limits of the instrument. Yeah. Every single angle, right?
Everything.
Oh my goodness.
Everything. So I spent months doing that. not playing any music,
Just playing with the instrument, right?
or making me do things that were very difficult. You know, things like, like playing octaves. He liked that, like to sing. No. Crazy stuff.
Wow.
And I learned quite a bit. So I spent a lot of time with him like that. He also showed me how to read music, but more than reading music, he was showing me the intention of the music. I mean, one of the things he used to tell me, this paper, that's just a representation of the music. That's not the music. The music is what you're going to play. When you play, that's music.
Yeah.
When you read it, no, that's just like representation. So fascinating experience with him.
Let's talk about the quena. It's not a very well-known instrument in the world.
That's right, yes.
And of course, there are not many orchestra pieces made specifically for the quena.
Yeah, no, the one that Jaime wrote is the only one that I'm aware of.
You're aware of, wow.
Yeah, it was finished in 2004. 2004, I got the manuscript. Now, he started working on this earlier because I knew about it about 1980 when he began, and he showed me some of the themes that I can hear. He showed me in his house. Play this. He said, oh, okay, good. So I started playing some music after a couple of years of doing nothing but noises and sounds, and then I was playing some of his music.
So is this going to be the very first time that this piece is going to be played?
In Goshen?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is going to be played by the Maple City Orchestra, correct?
Maple City, yes, Community Orchestra of Goshen.
Who is composed out of members of the community?
Members of the community.
Different members of the community just come.
Absolutely, yes, members of the community. Some of them students from Goshen College, some of them are professionals, some are just advanced amateurs that just love to play music. So it's a fantastic orchestra, and I'm grateful to them because it's the first time that they're featuring nothing but Latino music.
Yes, that's amazing. I was going to say, you've been in Goshen College since 2014, you said?
2011.
2011. You haven't seen an event specifically focused on Hispanic Latin music?
Not the symphonic orchestra, no.
Wow.
I mean, some little pieces have been played here and there, vocally, also instrumental, but the symphony, no.
Yes.
You know, as far as I know, they haven't played anything by Latino composers.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
As far as demographics, I believe 45% of Hispanics Latino in the area.
Yes.
45%, that is.
Yeah, especially that's like 25 and below, 30 below, that's about.
And we're talking about the fastest demographic group growing in the United States. We're not a minority anymore.
No, yeah. No, and good. This is good. I mean, this is good not only for the Latino community, for the entire community. You know, I think it brings some freshness, renews the symphonic sounds, because sometimes, you know, for a lot of people, when people talk about symphonic music, people are thinking about old music, you know, from the 1800s, 1900s. We have fantastic music for that period, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's more.
Rhythm.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing I think, you know, when I had the blessing of going to one of the practices where the Maple City Orchestra was playing.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that you see. It is almost unavoidable to see the musicians start almost dancing to it, right? In other concerts, you can see that they can keep their posture and they're just carefully playing their instrument, and this one they can just help it. They just move.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what the Latino culture, you know, Hispanic culture gives to classical music, you know.
Yes.
And I hesitate when I say Latino, Hispanic, because these are very, and just take a little parenthesis, very inaccurate terms. That's why I don't know what to say sometimes. That's why I like the word mestizo. No, the council we call it a mestizo America. They asked me for a name. I said, let's use the word mestizo. I like mestizo.
It's more representative of who we are, right?
Of course, because it's a mixture. Yeah. Technically speaking, mestizo means a mixture of a European and indigenous.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, the Spaniards, when they came to the Americas, they created a system. Yeah. They call it a system of castas. The castas, which each type of mixture, they give it a name.
Yeah.
So the name between a European and indigenous, they call those people mestizos. Then the mixture of the European with African, they call them
mulattos, right.
Mulatto. Then the mixture between indigenous and an African, they call it sambo. And they had a whole system going down the social scale.
Right, each had their benefits, right?
Of course,
and privileges as well.
Absolutely. Now, the higher one was called the peninsulares, the one from Spain, the peninsula.
Yeah.
Then the second below, they were the criollos. the Criollo Spaniards
Born in this land.
and then below the mestizos and so on. But they had another system. The system didn't go only this way, it went up this way too. And interesting enough that this idea of going back is something that still stays in the culture. I remember when I first came to the United States, a woman, an American woman, see, even the word American's weird.
Right, yes.
That I prefer to call them European Americans, right? Because I think if there's a Mexican American, there's an African American, there should be a European American.
Correct.
So anyway, the European American was bringing me to the United States to play music, and my mom was very happy. She said, Nayo, estás mejorando la raza.
Oh my goodness.
With pride.
Wow.
Improving the race. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But thinking back, it had to do with this colonial mindset as well.
Yes.
Because again, you can go down the social scale, you can go up. And how do you get up? By marrying somebody who was above you.
Wow.
Yeah, so if say you were, it was like 12, 13 levels deep. Okay, all very, very, like the song I sang yesterday, Mata de l'Anima Sola.
Yeah.
There's one word.
Beautiful performance, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I've been telling them to sing that piece. It's beautiful, beautiful from Venezuela. It's a joropo venezolano, beautiful. No, it says, La tarde, catira y mora. It says, La tarde, catira y mora. The afternoon, catira was one of those names of the casta. So a catira was somebody who was of African descent, but had a more European than African. So was one of those coming down from below, coming down from marrying somebody who was whiter. So you could go all the way up, and when you got very close, you call it castizo or castiza, but you can never be as good as the original.
Now that you mentioned all that social construct, I'm going to say something, I'm going to ask something. I hope it's not controversial, but
No. Yeah.
Is that what's happening to our music, you think? Where, classical music from Europe is played more, is perceived as higher quality than mestizo music, maybe? Is that you?
Yes, yeah, clearly. I mean, the quena, this is a indigenous instrument. Now this particular ones have been worked and has a lot of improvements to the sound and intonation, right? But it's looked upon as something too simple to play with symphonic orchestra. Symphonic orchestra, you saw their instruments.
Yes.
You have the flute, all kinds of keys made out of metal. The instruments are very complicated, very complex. I have a few here. You can see some. There's a flauta dulce, big one. There's another clarinet,
Yes.
So when they look at something like this, it's so simple. I mean, look at that. This is too simple to do sophisticated music. I think that's part of the problem. Also, the fact that people haven't heard much of it. I mean, the only time people have heard this type of music is people playing in the street, playing very simple folk songs. And nothing wrong with that. Folk music is wonderful, it's beautiful. But to play in an orchestral setting, well, that takes some training in composers like Jaime Díaz Orihuela, that have to write this down.
Yes. Well, it's a wonderful thing that Goshen College and the Maple City Orchestra are playing this piece. I can't really wait until I hear that completely, because during the practice, I heard some parts that are just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so emotional, so moving. The second movement is,
the second
amazing.
movement. Yeah, the second movement is allegory, actually. Well, the maestro, when he wrote this piece and he explained all this to me, that fortunately I was able to put it in a documentary, because all that knowledge was here. I need to put it out. Now, he composed this piece as an allegory to human union and harmony. So he divided, it has three movements. Okay, the piece is about 29 minutes long, about three movements. The first movement, he called it La Llamada, the calling, the invocation. The quena calls that theme, beautiful theme. But the thing is that Jaime was a master composer. You will hear the concerto, you will remember at least three themes. At least three themes. The llamada, taran, 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 right? Taran, taran, that's the llamada, the calling of the people of the world, represented by the orchestra. But he said the native people are calling, or the mestizo people are calling with two voices, a masculine voice and a feminine voice. So the first thumb is the masculine voice. Then after they call that, then the women also call the world with the other theme. He called it the feminine theme. the da-da, da-da,
Okay.
da-da-da-da-dee.
Much softer and
Exactly.
yes.
A different type of calling. The male is calling like, come on, let's take on.
gather, right.
And the female say, please come.
Yeah.
Yes, join us. Da-da. That melody is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first movement. It's this calling. Then the second movement that you liked is amazing, and that's beautiful, beautiful. The second movement is, he called it la pilgrimage, la peregrinación, la procesión. And when you hear the music, it sounds like a procession.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be taking place from Cusco, the main plaza of Cusco. That actually should tell you that Cusco in Quechua, the native language of the Incas, means the navel of the world, like the umbilical of the world. So like most cultures, that was the beginning. So then there's a path actually people can take even today. They call it the Inca Trail. Es el Valle Sagrado de los Incas. Dura como 4 días caminar de la plaza. So I changed to Spanish. So it takes about 4 days from the Plaza del Cusco all the way to Machu Picchu. So the second movement represents that pilgrimage.
Oh, okay.
And in this pilgrimage, he wrote the music and he said, this is a music with this like the beginning of civilization, the beginning of a new era of harmony. And he said, when
Almost
you hear
like a spiritual journey, right?
very spiritual. So it's, in fact, with the orchestra, we need to play it a little quieter. We're playing a little too loud right now, so we have to play it a little quieter because you're like praying. And he precisely talk about praying to the ancestors, to God, the conception of God with, in mayuscula, he say, no, G-O-D, not any specific deity, but God,
Right.
the creator, you know.
Yeah.
In nature, and also the apus. The apus were the word of the Incas for the mountains. The mountains represented past guides, that they were still watching over us. So the whole procession, in the beginning, you hear like, that's the beginning. It's like he said, there's a revival, almost like a...
Like an earthquake, like an earth rumbling.
Right.
That's amazing how you can...
Right, so like it's like creation all over again. So when you hear it with that, it makes complete sense. And he say, I want you to play the quena in a way that it sounds almost like you don't know how to play it. Sounds okay?
You mean I've been training all these years so that I can play something?
Yeah, because he wanted to give the impression that the quena is representing kind of the people trying to find themselves. They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to do. So I play it a little bit, but it's hard to do. I mean, like the second movement, the melody, oh, it's gorgeous. And the second movement, the main melody, is in a specific rhythm of southern Peru, where he's from, called Yaraví.
Okay.
Yaraví. Now, this is one of the oldest styles of Peruvian music. The word Yaraví is the mestizo word. The indigenous word was Jarawi.
Okay.
And so the Jarawi was a style of singing with no instrumentation, just a voice, usually a female voice. And the Jarawi was sung for ceremonies, for funerals, and it was unaccompanied. So, but he wanted to play this Jarawi, but he said, do it in a way that sounds like you don't know how to, like you crying. Two things, you don't know how to play the quena, and you're crying, you're trying to find your way around. So the melody is so beautiful. No, this is like,
Oh, that sounds so emotional, so deep.
it's pentatonic, but he wanted more. He wanted like so
Like
almost
crying, right?
Like crying. Also, not respecting the meter too much. You have to be very free. Like you're crying and you can't quite talk. Because you're in the presence of God. God knows. But it's difficult to do. If I do what he wanted me to do, I won't do it because it sounds almost like if people don't know the story behind it, they may think,
what is he doing, right?
What is he doing? Because he wanted like. then one part when is when you're trying to come out of, you're coming out of something, and that's where he has this. You say, I want you to sound very disjointed, like you don't know what you're doing, like. That's what he wanted.
Wow. So dynamic.
Yeah.
So dynamic.
Yeah, so that's the pilgrimage. Pilgrimage, I think, is the way it's so very slow, very lento, with a very slow style. This Harawi that I'm telling you, I was talking with the conductor, Victoria Petrak, fantastic conductor.
Yes.
That she said, Nayo, sometimes you're taking longer. I say, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I said, the style is in 3/4. So for non-musicians, that means 1, 2, 3. But with a subdivision underneath. So it's not 3, it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and the rhythm is actually 1 ta 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 ta. It's very different from Western European music.
Yeah.
So the one is not played ta ta ta. It's like short, long, long, short. Ta 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 ta.
Sounds like syncopation, right?
It's very syncopated. Not only that, but the third beat is longer. So you can't quite write it.
Yeah, how is the orchestra responding to these rhythms?
They love it.
Oh, they do? Wow.
Oh, they love it. They always say, wow. Because he was a master of rhythm. The rhythms are just great. They love the rhythms, like ta 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 ta.
Yeah. I was watching them, and they're moving.
Yeah, I will be dancing, I will be moving. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't avoid it. I mean, there's rhythm like ta 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 ta. I mean, you don't have those rhythms in Europe.
Yes.
There's some mestizo rhythms.
Yes.
In that particular rhythm, I asked the maestro, "What is this rhythm?" He wouldn't commit, but I hear many influences there. I hear some Afro-Peruvian influence, like ta 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 ta.
Yes.
The Afro-Peruvian rhythm goes like ta 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 ta. I also hear some rhythms of a style from Ecuador and Bolivia called chuntunqui. And the chuntunqui specifically, that's high and lows, like a repetition, like ta 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 ta. Very typical of the chuntunqui. Ta 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 ta. And he does a lot of that in that concerto. Now he said no. He said it's not a chuntunqui or not a festejo Afro-Peruvian. I mean, but he grew up in Peru. He hears, but he was all this. So anyway, I went away. No. So anyway, the rhythm.
The rhythm, yeah.
Yeah, not only of the concerto, but also the libertango, the rhythm of the libertango y the danzón.
Yeah.
In the danzón.
Dun, 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 dun. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh,
This is going to be a good concert now.
Oh,
I can't
the
really wait.
danzón. I was actually going to suggest to Victoria to have the people clapping the clave in a couple of spots.
Oh, that's a good idea.
To get the audience
Yeah, that's a good idea.
participating. Yeah, ta-ra-ra, or the libertango. Ta-ra-ra-ra, ta-ra.
Piazzolla, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He uses also the clave in libertango.
Yeah.
But he uses only, he doesn't use the 5 notes of the clave. Usually the clave is 5, like ta, 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 ta. 1, 2, 3. He uses 3 only, like ta,
really?
ta, 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 ta.
Yeah.
Ta, da, 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 ta. Da, da, da. I mean, he does a good job. He uses only the ta, 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 ta.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And the third movement. So let's go back to the concert.
Yes.
So the first movement, the calling. No, the second movement, the pilgrimage, where there's very soft yarabis. And the third movement is the celebration. This happens atop Machu Picchu. And for the celebration, he picked a style of Peruvian music called huayno. And the huayno is the music that people play to celebrate things.
Okay.
Yeah, and the rhythm is very nice. It's very simple. It's very simple rhythm, but the huayno is usually in 2/4, 1 and the 2 and the 1 and the 2, but he writes it in 3. So it's like, ooh, what happened here? He has the ta 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 ta. So the main melody of the third rhythm is a huayno, but it's a huayno in 3. There are some huaynos in 3 in the folk traditions, but not that many.
Okay.
And that is interesting too, because all of a sudden the accent is not on 1, it's in 3. Ta tan ta tan 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 ta tan ta tan 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 ta tan ta tan 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 tan. Like he comes back.
Yeah.
And I was showing when the orchestra was rehearsing, you know, I noticed that struggle a little bit, because in European music, the 3 is soft.
Oh.
Yeah.
So new rules apply.
Yeah, well, it's different.
Yeah.
No, the European music is the 3 is used for waltzes, usually for waltzes, but the 3 is soft. You think things like da dun 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 dun. 1, 2, 3, da 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 da. The 1 is the strong beat, yes. But in this Peruvian style, the stronger beat is the 3, da 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 da. So sometimes you're not familiar with it, you think that the 3 is the 1, so you get tuned around where they feel. So
yeah, so a lot of communication between you and the music director, right? So
absolutely. Well, it takes to do this piece, any kind of Latino music takes a conductor that wants to really explore things that are different.
Yeah.
But, you know, as I told him, you know, the mestizo rhythm sounds very complicated until you start doing it. Once you're doing it, it feels very natural. It sounds very complicated, but it's not. It has a lot of feeling to it.
Would you agree that, yeah, I was just going to get there, yes, that you have to feel it to almost, you know.
You have to feel it.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember learning some Afro-Peruvian rhythms, because I'm from Peru, but I don't know the Afro-Peruvian rhythm very well, from an Afro-Peruvian friend. Learning the cajon, because the cajon is a Peruvian instrument, become very famous. And I couldn't do it. He said, Nayo, necesitas más hombros. He said in English that you need more shoulders. So you just stress. You have to go like, just hombros. Just loosen up. And instead of loosening, it sounds better. So you have to loosen up.
Yeah.
You can't. But they sound very complicated, like the Mata del Anima Sola we sang yesterday. This is a beautiful song from Venezuela. The rhythm is called joropo. It's un joropo.
Yeah.
Again, this composer, because this is classical music using national elements, right? That's called nationalism in classical music, nationalism. Yeah. The pioneers of this nationalism was the Polish, actually, like the Polonesas, famous Polonesas, like Chopin, the Polonesas. Then the Russians did a great job with the national music. When you hear classical music from Russia, and you can tell it's Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did an amazing job. Latin America, we've done some work. We have a lot of work that's not well known yet.
Yeah.
So this nationalistic elements, this Mata del Anima Sola, this core piece, also has that. And again, the composer is writing a joropo style of music and dance from Venezuela that is taca. The most famous joropo is the Alma Llanera. The llano means the plains feel where the folk people go. That's the llanera, that's the Alma Llanera, the most famous joropo. Now this composer writes a joropo called Mata el Anima Sola. But what does he do? He takes it taka, and instead of writing in 6/8, he writes it in 3/4, and it's just so it's ta 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 ta. So it's very complicated. Ta 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 ta. The first rhythm is ta 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 ta. And ironically, I was singing the tenor solo, and I was having a very hard time coming in the right place. I don't know if you saw me. I was watching the conductor because at the moment this composer writes it in 3, me knowing the folk style, I was thrown. I was like, what? Because I'm used to ta 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 ta. Now he's ta 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 ta. And 3, I was like, what?
Yeah.
But that's part of the beautiful thing about nationalistic classical music.
Yeah.
Because musicians with training, they can take the national music and keep the flavor of it and do something greater or bigger, right? And Jaime does that in Concierto Sinfónico Machu Picchu, takes Peruvian folk music, and he makes this amazing work. Piazzolla takes the tango, and all of a sudden he's doing a tango.
Pushes the limits.
Right. And he has this tango that has amazing rhythm, and also the harmonies. He uses sort of a Spanish descending harmony, not 100%, but it has that. Then we have the mambo danzón that takes, again, a folk style danzón, and he creates this piece with different parts. Now they're applying, one thing that is in common, I noticed with a lot of these classical composers, they take in the national flavor and applying the format that already exists from the European music. Because one of the great things about European classical music, they develop over hundreds of years, and they develop forms.
Yeah, the standardization of music.
They standardize the form in formulas that do work.
Yeah.
They work, right? There's like specifically the concerto, they usually have a theme, right? You have at least two themes, like the Concerto Sinfonico, at least two themes, and those themes have to return, they come back in different forms, but at least people hear it many times. Again, this concerto, people hear it, they will remember it for sure. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. They'll remember that. They will remember ta-da, ta-da. And the other thing that they may remember is the wine, ta-da, 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 ta-da. So, but those things keep coming back. And the same with the danzón, he's taking the style of music and then he has a specific format. You hear the danzón has like three different specific sections. And there's transitional sections, very specific sections. The beginning begins with the clarinet, a solo, a beautiful duet between the clarinet and the oboe. What's it called? It's called fagot, I think. I may be wrong, but it looks like a clarinet, but it's not a clarinet. It's a smaller mouthpiece.
It might be the oboe. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it has a beautiful sound. They have this duet.
Yeah.
Then comes the full orchestra. It sounds like a big band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nayo, this is going to be a beautiful concert. I want to thank you for representing Latin America in the area. This is going to be a beautiful concert. Why don't you take the time and invite people, and you can tell the audience where it's going to be and all that good stuff.
Well, please come over next Sunday, 4 p.m., Sauter Hall in Goshen College. Beautiful theater. The sound is amazing. So again, we'll play three composers. It's going to be a Mexican composer, Arturo Marquez, danzón número 2, his most famous danzón. He wrote like 9 or 10 danzons, I think. Then Astor Piazzolla, a Libertango, a short but beautiful piece, one of his most famous pieces. And finally, the end of the concerto will be Concierto Sinfónico Machu Picchu. I'll be the feature soloist playing all the scenas. I will use all those 4 scenas. And that's on Sauter Hall, Goshen College, corner of 12th and College Avenue, 4 p.m. Oh, and it is free. It's free, so please invite people. It's free. Thank you to several, sponsors.
And I want to say thank you to Maple City Orchestra. Thank you, Victoria Petrak, the director. Thank you, Goshen College, for organizing this wonderful event. We really look forward to this concert. And thank you, Nayo, for all your hard work throughout the years representing the Latin, Hispanic, mestizo music.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for...
Appreciate it. No, thank you.
I really appreciate you coming over and doing this. And thank you, the man behind the cameras.
Yes.
Zahid, thank you, Zahid.
Thank you, Zahid, behind the cameras, our producer, and also today behind the cameras. And please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share this interview with your friends, and don't forget to click the like button for us. This is for the Goshen Chronicles. I'm Magdiel Santiago, and I have my friend Nayo Ulloa here. We'll see you next time. Thank you.